What is going on, Nuggets Nation, NBA fans? My name is Tom Leuthner. Welcome back in to Nuggets Today, presented by Fan Arch. We have, I think, 2 more days at this point in Europe, and then I am back home at the home setup. I'm going to try to get either 1 or 2 more episodes out after this if I can, but I do have a few flights actually to catch in order to get back home, so it may be a little tough to do so. But I do want to talk about some things that came up at the day of this recording. The first one being that Anthony Simons has been in the conversation to be traded or be shopped, and the Denver Nuggets and the Philadelphia 76ers are 2 teams that are interested in him. Now, from what I know and the sources that I know, that is not a reliable source. Who broke this news for Anthony Simons is not reliable, and realistically, it doesn't make sense for Denver to do it. Now, there are a lot of factors that play into that. The first factor being the fact that Denver doesn't need another shooting guard unless they plan on playing him at the point guard. And even then, they're a little overstacked at that position. Not that that's the biggest problem in the world, and that's something I'll get to in a little while. But that's one thing that doesn't make too much sense. Now, you look at the second point, the trade value would likely have to include guys like CB, Jonas, and probably Zeke Naji, which doesn't matter at all. But it doesn't make sense to give up your backup center, because then you need to go out and get another center. You're then giving up Christian Brown, who's your only guy that you truly trust when it comes to your young talent on the roster. That's the one guy that you're going to go out this upcoming offseason. We all know that he is going to get paid by Denver most likely. And he's the only guy that seems to be trusted. He's the only guy that was getting legitimate minutes. And I know that Watson was in there as well, but Brown worked his way into the rotation 1 year out of KCP being on the roster and fully took over that role. He's a guy who was able to step up his game and actually knock the 3-ball down. Now, am I saying Simons isn't a good player? He 100% is a good player, but unless you're trading, somehow getting rid of just Najee, Pickett, and I guess Hunter Tyson for him, then it doesn't make sense to do it at all, and the Celtics are smarter than doing that, which I know it may not seem at this offseason that they're smarter than doing that, but they 100% are. I know Brad Stevens knows what he's doing. I think we all know that Brad Stevens knows what he's doing, so they wouldn't make a trade like that. So overall, from what I know, the source that I know, the person that broke that is not a reliable source. And overall, it doesn't make sense for Denver to do it realistically because the trade assets are going to be too much, and Denver doesn't happen to have probably anything that the Celtics would want because our young talent wouldn't fit with them because they're not as talented as some of the other teams on what they could probably get for Simons, even though right now it doesn't seem like it is much. Now, moving on to somebody Denver did pick up in this offseason, I saw a stat about rebounding, right? And it was very interesting. The biggest overall impact on team rebounding differential rate, accounting for team rebounding, teammates and opposing lineups. Sounds confusing, the stat, which I know the way to break it down is basically is the overall impact from 1 year to the next that the player had when joining the team when it comes down to the rebounding factor. Now, number 4 on the list of the top 10 was Tim Hardaway Jr. this past year with a rate of plus 2.7. And I think that could be massive for Denver. Now, I'm not saying that Denver doesn't rebound by any means. The one thing I was nervous about with Cam Johnson rather than MPJ was the fact that MPJ was a good rebounder. He was the second rebounder on Denver's organization last year. He's a guy who was able to get a double-double if needed. Listen, he wouldn't pass the ball as much as Cam. He might not put it on the floor as much as Cam, but he is one guy that was able to get rebounded. I believe he averaged around 7 or 8 rebounds a game, which was massive for Denver. But I know that Denver's a top-tier rebounding team, right? You look at what they were able to do this past season, even with one guy only averaging 7 or 8. Denver was number 4 in rebounding overall and 3rd in the offensive rebounding category. So they are a great rebounding team. But now you add Tim Hardaway Jr. to that mix, a guy who is obviously making a difference when it comes to being on the court with them. And now they're hopefully going to push for that number 1 spot, which would be massive for Denver if they're able to go out, grab that number 1 spot, be the team that out-rebounds every team. I know that we spoke about the hustle ball a little bit recently in one of the most recent episodes, and that's something that you need to see from Denver. Those long rebounds can't be Denver can't afford to let those rebounds be grabbed by the opposing teams. They have to be able to go out and grab those rebounds if they really do want to be that team that comes out and pushes just about every team to their limit. And adding a guy like Tim Hardaway Jr., maybe it'll do that. He's a vet. He's a little bit gritty. You now have a guy like Bruce Brown who's a little bit gritty. You have a guy like, obviously Peyton Watson who wants to be that CB in your starting five. So I think that Tim Hardaway Jr. could obviously be a massive factor. And I think that's why everybody thinks that he is going to be the best acquisition from Denver this offseason. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is just a quick note. The Malik Beasley conversation is still up for what teams want him. I saw that the Pacers had no real interest according to certain sources, and I also saw the Timberwolves enter the conversation for him. Now, Timberwolves had him in the past, and we all know that with the T-Wolves, he wasn't a major factor. Now, he's a good player, but it's funny to me because I think that if he was a Knick, I'd be more nervous about the Knicks than I would be with him joining the Timberwolves and being a Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, I think the T-Wolves are a great team, but I don't think that he gives the T-Wolves what they need to make that championship push. I think that the best team we saw with the T-Wolves was when they beat Denver and pushed the conference finals against the Mavs rather than this past year with Karl-Anthony Towns, McDaniels, Kyle Anderson, all those guys. I think their team is good now. I think that Dante's good. Obviously, Edwards is amazing. Naz Reid is good. They locked him down. But I don't know. There's something about that Cat-Gobert combo that really did it for me, where I thought that they would be a lot better than or not even better, but I thought that, they were a better team back then. If you add a guy like Malik Beasley to that team, maybe you're just as good, if not better than they are right now, or, as the Nuggets right now. But I still don't think they're there. So if Malik goes to Minnesota, then so be it. I don't think that he would be the biggest factor in the world for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Like he's an amazing shooter. Dante was an amazing shooter before going there, and we saw Dante have his struggles. So you just have to hope that if he does go there for the Nuggets' sake, that he's not what he was this past year, especially with everything that's on his mind. And again, it's going to be more of a prove-it year now that he could stay in the NBA. He's not betting. All that's over with. So, I'm not too mad. Now, the last thing I want to talk about, speaking about Malik Beasley and free agents, is the fact that there are still some big names in free agency. And the only reason I bring this up is because we still don't know what's happening with Kessler Edwards yet on Denver. And I'd be completely fine with Kessler Edwards. But I went back in free agency, and I did look at some names that sort of interested me and were some guys who I'd be happy with if Denver was able to go out and get. Some of the names are guys that we brought up in the past, and I'm not going to break down every single name, but one of the guys, obviously, Bol, and I was thinking about it today, a backup lineup of Bol, Deron Holmes, and Val at the front court. It would be great, in my opinion, but I know people don't want to hear too much about him, but some other names, Precious Achiuwa, Malcolm Brogdon's still out there, Alec Burks, Torrey Craig, Seth Curry, Dante Exum, Talen Horton-Tucker, Kai Jones, Monte Morris, DeLon Wright, Ben Simmons, and the biggest name for me is Cody Martin. I think that Cody Martin could be a massive factor for Denver. I do think that we probably wait and see in the beginning of the season where these vets decide to go, or right before the beginning of the season, just because there is still a lot of drama with the restricted free agents going on. I know Giddey hasn't signed yet to this point. Kuminga hasn't signed yet to this point. So there's still a lot to go on with free agency. And let's see if Kessler makes the roster or not, because like I said, I'd be fine with him, and I broke it down. I think he could be a good factor for Denver, but if he isn't, if he won't be, then there's some guys that could still be good enough to be factors for Denver. Anyway, that's all I got for you guys this episode. Thank you guys for checking it out. Like I said, hopefully there's one more episode in before a short break. If not, then I will see you guys after that break, but hopefully there's one more episode, so I'll see you guys tomorrow, hopefully. Thank you guys for checking it out. Hit that like and subscribe button. I'll catch you guys soon.